opens up in U.S. theaters on September 27th. My name is Eric Davis. I am thrilled to be here with some guests from the film. We have writer-director Kris Sanders playing Razum 7134 or Roz, Lupita Nyong'o, and composer Kris Bowers. It's great to have you all here. Just to say, for a minute, I had the luxury of experiencing this film just a couple of days ago at its Toronto International Film Festival premiere, and just was blown away. It is instantly among one of my favorite films of the year. It is beautiful across the board, and it has such an inspiring, emotional story, terrific performances, and a score that is just sensational. So I am thrilled to be here with the three of you right now. But let's jump right into questions, and I have them here. We're going to start with Kris Sanders. The Wild Robot marks a return to directing an animated feature after making 2020's live-action film, The Call of the Wild. How did the experience of directing a live-action film change your approach to directing your first animated feature in 11 years?
I think it was the immediacy of the collaboration was really different. Animation happens slowly over such a long period of time, and you're there on the day. You've got to get everything, and it's all about collaboration, particularly with the actors. It's something I've done before, but it's different. It's more immediate. I keep saying that word, but you only have the day to get everything. So there's a lot more interaction, I think, in the best way possible.
Great. For Lupita, how did you this is a great question, first of all, because I was so taken by your performance here and the arc that you gave with Roz, and just sort of the way that you layered in the emotion and really fueled those nuances. And this question speaks to that. How did you master the challenge of expressing such a wide array of emotions only through your voice and not just have a mechanical feel to it?
Wow. Well, thank you for the compliment in that question. It was definitely, I had an incredible partner here in Kris, and early on I asked him why he thought of me for the role of Roz, and he mentioned that he liked the warmth of my voice. So we knew that we were going to end up with a Roz that sounded more like me, to kind of depict that evolution she's gone through. And then we kind of like reverse engineered. I was inspired by the automated voices of Alexa and Siri, and the voices on TikTok and Instagram. And in looking at those, what was similar in all of them was this kind of like optimistic brightness. So after a lot of trial and error, we had many versions of Roz, and that's the beauty of doing it over 2.5 years, is that as the script develops, so does the voice. So in the end, we ended up with that sort of like programmed optimism to start her off, and we had these markers in the script of when and how Roz's voice is evolving to show how she's adapting to her new environment. And it was all about just like dialing it up. It was wonderful to have such a just such a supportive and insightful partner in Kris.
Well, you did such a great job. I'm a sentimentalist, so my favorite kind of films are the films that you feel, and like you feel this film, and I love that in a lot of ways it's about the importance of saying I love you, and so much of how you feel this film, I think, is in your music, Kris Bowers, which the score is just incredible. And this question is for you. The Wild Robot is the first score you have done for an all-animated film. What was the fundamental difference between scoring an animated film versus a live-action film? And did you have any inspirations when it came to composing the score?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for the kind words. For me, as far as inspiration, I started this film shortly after I became a dad. My daughter is only about maybe 5 months old when we had our first meeting. And by the time I was finishing, she was in the terrible twos. It's a very different experience. But in those couple of years, just how much I was not examining my own relationship with her and what it felt like to become a parent, and how many things I and my wife felt, similar to Roz is learning how to do that, but also just looking at my appreciation for my own parents, my own mother, and looking at that sacrifice, looking at the sacrifice of my wife, and so much of the emotion in this story that it's so palpable and involuntarily brings up these visceral emotions for me. We're just also mirroring so many things I was already thinking about so much in my own life. One sequence in particular I think about is the migration sequence, and there's a cue that we worked on for a long time, and my first pass at it, was really bright and happy, and Kris reminded me about the fact that this is this really bittersweet moment where Roz is saying goodbye to Brightville, and they don't know if they're going to see each other ever again, and they're not saying, I love you, and they're not saying those things, and what would that feel like? And I hadn't even thought of the depth of that experience and what that would be like with my own daughter, and Kris was reminding me of what that experience might be like with my own daughter, and I just remember going back after that conversation with him and writing that piece of music, and it just kind of coming out of me very naturally because of how much the emotion was just kind of top of mind. And so inspiration was definitely a lot of my own personal experiences, and the difference I would say is starting that early. I'm starting mainly with black and white pencil sketches and the animatic of the animation, and so having to rely so much on Kris's guidance as a director to understand what I'm scoring to look at the concept art to realize what this is going to look like in terms of color and imagery, and use my imagination. And so if I have still images that I'm writing to, I'm imagining it in its fullest form so that I'm writing music that doesn't feel like it's held back at all.
Wonderful work, I will say. This is a question for everyone, and like I was saying before, one of the things that I took away from the film is just the importance of saying I love you and making sure that that's part of my everyday. But what would you say is the most important message you would like audiences to take away from experiencing the film? This is a question for everyone. Kris Sanders, I'll start with you.
Front and center is the idea that we're at some point going to have to change our programming to accomplish something, and that I think that we're all creatures of habit. We hate change, and maybe I've thought a lot about this. I think that sometimes we're afraid that if we change our programming, we're going to lose ourselves somehow. If that makes sense, and you're not going to. You're going to become a more dimensional being, and it's going to be okay. And that was something that was built into the book by Peter Brown that we identified, and it was a core like load-bearing theme in the story.
I like the message that kindness is a force. I think oftentimes kindness can be considered like, a vulnerability, and in this film we really show how Roz's journey shows how it is a force, and it's a force to reckon with.
Without a doubt, yeah, and also I would say like accepting people who are different than you or others that are different than you, and welcoming that into your life without a doubt.
Yeah, being open to that.
Yeah, Kris, for you.
I'd say all of those things, and maybe add to that just thanking the people that have sacrificed for you to be here and be who you are, and remembering that whether it's our mothers or whomever else is playing that role, just that there's so much that they are doing for us to be able to thrive in this world, and to remember that, and remember to thank them, and say I love you when it makes sense.
My next question is for Lupita. How was the recording experience, and did you learn any lessons in the voice booth?
Did I ever? The experience, I had a lot of fun. Every time we got to a recording session, it would start off with me giving notes on the new pages, and Kris was very receptive to that, and it was really awesome to be able to share a thought, or like be struggling with something on the page, share it with Kris, and then he would take us beat and if the booth would go silent, I wouldn't be able to hear what was going on in the other room, and then he would come back on the mic, and he would have solved the problem, or, and it was a really wonderful symbiotic relationship I think we had working on this. So I always felt valued and additive. So seeing the final product was just, I swelled with gratitude for having been a part of it, and to see my fingerprints on it, and then to see what everybody else brought to it. So that was amazing. I think finding the right creative chemistry is so important. So for me, that was something I already knew, and then it was fortified in this experience. And then I also learned to go easy on myself, because I had a vocal accident when I was working on the earlier part of Roz. That voice was quite vocally athletic for me, and I injured myself, and I was rendered silent for 3 months. So I learned a very important lesson there, to really pay attention to my limitations.
For Kris Sanders, how did you visualize Roz's journey from being a shipwrecked robot to becoming a vital part of the island's ecosystem? What were your key considerations in designing the island and its inhabitants?
Keeping it really chaotic. I wanted to make sure that we built Roz with a lot of articulation. We knew that she had to be like a humanoid because of the book and the role that she played in the story, but we also wanted her to be surprising and interesting, and we wanted to give the animators opportunities to move her in interesting ways, which, by the way, they exceeded at every turn. They surprised me with what they were able to do with her rig. I was very insistent that the island be uneven, that we never make things convenient for Roz. We don't want these flat, these mysterious flat paths that were magically waiting for her, so that she could make her way easily through everything, especially in the beginning. We wanted her to actually bend and duck, and we wanted to be sure that the audience understood very, very clearly this is not where she was supposed to be, but she doesn't get it. I think that's one of the fun things about it. The engineered optimism that Lupita was talking about. She's walking through the forest, and she's, in a sense, she's advertising. She's looking for whoever bought her. Literally, somebody out there ordered her. So she's walking around, and she's spinning around, and she's kind of doing a promo with this music that Kris designed, because we wanted this sort of futuristic. He'll talk about that. I want to talk for him. But yeah, so this futuristic music is coming out of her, and she's advertising, and she's waiting for somebody to appear and go, "Oh, it's me. I ordered you, and I have something for you to do." It's kind of sad in a way.
Okay, so this is going to be our last question. So I'm looking for a good one. For Kris Bowers and Lupita, did you recall any childhood memories while making this film for inspiration? If so, what were they? Kris Bowers, I'll start with you, and then we'll end with Lupita.
Yeah, I definitely just thought a lot about when I first realized the power of music to help tell a story, which was in early animation. Like, when I was a kid, I just watched cartoons most of the time, and they were mostly those cartoons that didn't have any dialogue. It was, Tom and Jerry, or Silly Symphonies, or the early Mickey cartoons, or, Looney Tunes, and how much you're getting from the physical gestures of the characters and the music alone, and how much you're not even thinking about whether or not there should be dialogue or confused about what's happening. It's just all very, very clear emotionally. And so, for Kris and I to talk a lot about his inspiration to have this be told so much with the visuals and the music, and to be able to really lean on that and have moments where, once I had a cue, we even talked about, or Kris would look at moments where he could take dialogue away, and that was so inspiring. And so for me, it was just not only an honor to work on a project that utilized music in that way, but also wanting to pay homage to those great composers that were able to make us feel so many different things with just music on the oral side.
Well, for me, Roz is a very sophisticated robot, right? But when she lands on this island, she's brand new. She's like a child, And I think that's what makes her such an endearing character, because she's very childlike in her fresh eyes and naivete on what life on a wild island can be like. So I think the innocence of children is something that I thought of, not necessarily for anything from my childhood, but in interacting with children, they say the darndest things. So, for example, yesterday, we asked this child, like, how would you look out for other people? And she said, with a telescope. Brilliant, right? And like an adult, you just don't think that way, right? But Roz does. There's that sort of like literal way of looking at the world because she's brand new, and keeping that innocence, I guess, was inspiring. Remembering the innocence of babes.
Well, I mean, from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure I speak for so many other people out there, thank you so much for bringing us this film. It is just a lovely experience. I adore it. Chris Sanders, Lupita Nyong'o, Chris Bowers. My name is Eric Davis. DreamWorks Animation's The Wild Robot opens in U.S. theaters on September 27th. Tell all of your friends and family. Everyone needs to experience this film on the big screen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.